All right, today I'm going to be replacing the drive shaft, CV drive shaft axle on a Polaris Ranger 570. This is going to be the mid-size UTV, so it's going to be slightly different than the full size, and I've done videos on those models as well. So we've got the back end jacked up at this time. We got the tire off. Takes a 17 millimeter socket to remove those 4 lug nuts there, and then we are going to pull this hub. Will be the next step, and we've got a cotter pin right in the middle there that we've got to remove. You like to use a pair of side dikes there and straighten it out and kind of tap on it, and then you can take, and the reason why I use side dikes is because you can pry on it there. Sometimes, a lot of times if you're putting a new axle in there, a lot of times the new axle will come with the cotter pin. Sometimes they become damaged or out of place like this. You try not to reuse them, just makes it a little more difficult. So we'll go ahead and pull this this nut off here. It's 1 1/16, and we've got 2 washers on there. You want to make sure going back together that you've got 2. And the next thing you want to do is grab a 15 millimeter wrench, and you want to loosen your caliper bolts off here. And there's 2 of those that mount to this this rear spindle here. And they don't put them in a place that's very easy to get to with a socket or an impact, so a lot of times you'll end up having to use a wrench on these. You do not have to pull the banjo bolt off of the caliper. If you do that, you'll end up having to bleed your brake system there. Just adds more work to it. To replace your brake pads, what I would do at this point is find your master cylinder, your rear brake master cylinder, and pull the cap off of there. All right, caliper bolts are off there. If you've got your master cylinder cap off, what I like to do then, if I'm replacing these brake pads, is take a screwdriver here, stick it in between the brake pads, kind of slightly pry those apart there so that you can get your new brake pads in and it'll fit over your disc well. And then to replace your brake pads, push right here on the mount and against the caliper on this side, and then that'll allow you to slide those pads off of there just like that. You've got your brake pads off. Going back together then, slide one side on there and push them right back down into the place. Same way as taking them apart. Sometimes it takes a little bit of force to get them past there, but if you can use a pair of pliers or something and push right here to kind of shrink up this rubber damper there, sometimes that's helpful. So we've got them back in there and you're all set. Now that's replacing the brake pads, and again, you don't have to pull that banjo bolt there or loosen up your bleeder screw. If you end up doing that, you will have to bleed your system. So going back to your axle, we can go ahead, pull this hub off there. Check your bearings, make sure those spin freely, make sure they're in good condition. Grab a 15 millimeter wrench there and a 15 millimeter socket. We can pull these off. Top and bottom there. So we do have washers on these, so just remember those need to go back together like that. Our hub is off there, our bearing carrier is off there. Now we're ready to pull that axle shaft out. I like to take and lift this A-arm up, kind of gets it out of the way, gives you a straight shot to pull that axle out. All right, we got a little WD-40 back in those splines there. We're able just to pull this axle out at this time. You want to try to center that clip, and I'll show you what clip I'm talking about. It takes a little bit of force to pull that out of there, but you've got a clip in here that you want to try to center, and that's what makes it so difficult to get in and out. So we got the old shaft off, and we got the new shaft ready to go in there. Now I like to take a little bit of grease here and put it on the clip, and this will help lubricate those threads going in there, but then also help to center that clip. So if you kind of smear it around there, that clip will kind of hold into place wherever you want it, and you want that clip centered. A lot of times you can barely tell where it's at, but if you're able to kind of push that, if that clip is all the way to one side, it'll make that a challenge to get into that differential. So If you can center that clip and hold that position while you go ahead and hold that up there, sometimes that just makes it a little bit easier. Now, sometimes you can take and just push that in there. A lot of times you gotta take a mallet and tap it in there. And if you can hold the axle straight, that's best. If you can keep those joints kind of tension on there. All right, then you can start tapping on this with a rubber mallet and tap it into position there. So once it's all the way seated, you'll feel it won't keep on moving. Then you're ready to go back together with it. So axle's in, you can pull our A-arm down where it needs to be. We're gonna take our hub here, slide it on, and then we can take bolts. Line those up there. Same way with the top one. Slide that in. And then again, remember we've got our washers on there, so don't forget to put those on before our nuts there. And then a 15 millimeter to tighten them up. Next we'll take our hub, slide it on. And a lot of times you take your fingers back there, kind of push on that axle to hold it into place. Otherwise, a lot of times that'll push that axle clear back too far. Remember, 2 washers there. Grab the new nut. And this one happens to be a little bit larger than the original. This is 1 1/8 inches. And then line that cotter pin hole up. There we go. And then we've got our caliper here, and this is ready to go back on. Try not to touch that brake pedal while you have this caliper off, or those pads will clamp together. Sometimes if they go too far, those pistons can be pushed out, and then you've got to take your caliper apart and bleed that system. So try to keep your feet off the brake pedal while you're doing this, or somebody else that maybe hops on the machine. Again, tighten these up. .15 millimeter wrench to do that. Once you have your caliper bolts tight there, you can stick your cotter pin in. Or you could have done this cotter pin before this, but you want to make sure that gets done so that axle nut isn't coming off of there. And then you are ready to put your tire back on and get on the road. So if you have questions or comments, make sure and leave those below. If this video has been helpful, make sure you subscribe, like, and share. If there's more videos you want me to do on this RZR 570, please make sure and leave those comments in the comments below. Thanks for watching.